Release it. Can you lie down? Down. Well, oh. What you got? What you got? What you got? What you got? Yeah. Get it. What you got? What you got? Yeah. Right. Hey, you man! You man! Come here! Come here! Let's try that one again. Come here. Sit. Wait. 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 Go. What you got? 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 Wait. Go. Yeah. Yeah. Get it. Go. Here. Stop. Where is everybody? Ray, young man, what are you after? With the weight you're doing your hands. Down. Down. Right. Get it. You go. Sit down. All right. Really? Get it. Good boy. Get it. Get it. Get it. Get it. Here. No. Here. Good boy. So clever. Yeah. 1 minute. Get it. No, get it. Get it. Here. Stop. Good boy. I'll do it for now. Good man. I'll do it for now.
Puzzle sit. Puzzle wait. Puzzle wait. Puzzle wait. Wait.
Boy.
Puzzle sit. Wait. Wait. Go on then. Good boy.
Right then, guess I better make a start. Seem to be a bit short on numbers. So, I see Rachel, it does make me laugh. You're going to have to change your name because you're always Rachel. Basil.
Puzzle lay down.
Morning. Right then. Does anybody want to speak to me, ask me any questions, any wiggles for the morning? Can everybody hear me? Can you just give me a hands up, thumbs up, friend? I always feel a bit lost and left out in this ethereal state. Here's Bruno, star pupil. All right. So somebody asked if we were going to be teaching Leave It, and yes is the answer, but it's a lot more complicated than just Leave It in the old way that we used to learn it
when I was first a student, you'd essentially tell your dog to leave something, and if they didn't leave it, you'd force them away from it and you'd scare them. And the risk with using any kind of punishment and associating it with anything is that there's the risk of fallout. In other words, how do you know that the dog definitely understands what's inside your mind? How do you know that they're not actually also learning that whatever else was in the environment is also something to be avoided or something that's scary? So we don't want to accidentally do that. So as much as possible, we want to train self-control and leave it by using choices games, games where the dog makes a decision and finds out what the result of that decision was for themselves. The question comes up quite often, and I've had it again, somebody on the group asked, am I not reinforcing behavior? If I give a reward to interrupt a behavior that I don't like, am I not reinforcing that behavior? Well, the answer to that is it depends on the consequence from the dog's point of view. So the question was, my dog's barking at something, and if I use food to interrupt that behavior to get them to move away from that behavior, am I not reinforcing? But if you think about it, what's the last thing that happens before you give the food? What's the very last thing that happens? And the very last thing that happens when you're reinforcing or using food to move a dog away from barking at something, the very last thing that happens is that they take the food and they eat it, which means that their mouth is closed and they're not barking. So in that last second, they're not doing that behavior anyway. And then the other thing is that there's always an underlying emotion to take into account. There's always the fact that there's a reason why that dog's barking. And usually that's going to be over arousal or it's going to be fear. And so either excitement to get to something and frustration that you can't, or fear of that thing. And with both of those situations, if we don't find a way of helping the dog feel better, then we're not going to change that underlying emotion. Okay, we can get rid of the behavior, absolutely. We can force the dog away from the situation, we can tell them off, we can get rid of that behavior, that you can do that. But that underlying emotion, that cause for that behavior is still there. And what tends to happen then is that that behavior will either come back in a much worse condition, or it's going to change into a different behavior because the cause of the behavior is still there. So can you reinforce behaviors? Absolutely you can. But what I want you to be thinking about here is, what's the last thing that happened before you gave that reward? Now that's going to be one of the things we're going to talk about, and that sort of underpins the whole leave it thing. Okay, so why do dogs go after our stuff? Why do they go after things in the environment that we don't want them to have? You know, what, and why do they keep doing it even when you've told them not to? Why? Well, because dogs are learning machines, just like children, just like we were. They want information about everything. They want to get into everything. They want to know how it feels, how it smells, what it looks like. And those things which they're not allowed to investigate almost become more intriguing. And we can make those things even more interesting by those being things that we spend a lot of time with, those things that we handle a lot, those things that we touch and interact with and play with. These are going to be the things that they want more information about. Why are we interacting with those objects? Okay, so what people will often do is they'll get into this nasty pattern of reacting and responding and getting up and giving information to the dog every time the dog touches something which they don't want them to. So we're giving a lot of attention when the dog is going after stuff we don't want them to touch. And then the dog will wander off and they'll start investigating their own toy and playing with their own toy. And then because the dog is being good, in inverted commas, and they're entertaining themselves, that's when we start to ignore them. That's when we don't give them attention. So we have to swap that round. What we need to do is we need to, first of all, set up the situation so that they're not likely to get stuff that you value. You know, I know it's a hard job to be constantly tidying up and making sure that stuff is out of the way. But the more that puppies manage to get you into that response cycle, the more that they're going to get attention for taking the things you don't like them to have. So tidiness, management, making sure that the environment is set up so that the pup doesn't get a lot of attention for those things. The next thing is when they do go after their toy, make it more exciting. Get excited, chase after them, you know, and show an interest in that object with them so that they can see it's something really valuable. And actually, sometimes, even if they're not really interested in the toy, it's a good idea for you to just pick up the toy and play with it and pay attention to it and notice how much damage has been done to it since the last time you saw it. Yeah, make it look interesting. Make it, and when the dog comes over, sometimes you could say, "It's mine. I don't want you to play with mine. I'm playing with this just now." And then you could accidentally drop it somewhere without making a big deal out of it. And then when the dog is interested in it, perhaps that's when you should be getting up and going, "What you got? What 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 you got?" Okay, so tug play. There's still a lot of people out there that are going to say to you that playing tug with your dog is going to cause your dog to be aggressive. Actually, it's probably not a good idea to have a squeaky toy. Come here, darling. Thank you. All right, here's a good one. Have that instead. Ooh, so clever. Okay, so using tug play is a really, really good way of teaching your dog to control their own arousal levels, to control their own excitement levels, to be able to work and listen to you even when they're excited. It's also a really, really good way of teaching them to let go of things that they would rather keep hold of. Okay, so we're going to get our puppies tugging. So I want you to get yourself a toy that you think they might be interested in tugging, but I don't want you to start playing yet because I just want to have a word about tug. Quite often when people think to themselves, "I want my dog to play with me," what they will do is they will take that object and they will put it into the face of the dog. They will whack it at the face of the dog. And if you think about it, if somebody came up to you and whacked something at your face, your instinct is to move away from it. It's not to move towards it. So what we actually need to do to get a dog interested in playing with us is make that object look like prey. And prey doesn't generally throw itself into the mouth of the dog. Prey usually moves away, and it moves away in a sort of a frantic, movementy sort of a way. So I want you to, first of all, take the toy, be interested in it yourself, play with it a little bit yourself. Don't look at the dog. You're not trying to get them to play with you. We want them to think that perhaps playing with you might be fun. All right, so I want you, your first job is to get your dog interested in and physically attached to a toy, sharing it with you. All right, now with puppies' mouths, I want you to be careful you're not tugging too hard because we don't want them to lose. We want them to win. We want them to be able to get this toy and keep hold of it. So I want you to tug at their level. Obviously, as they get bigger and stronger, that level will increase. So take your toy, move it away if you can. Dodo's obviously an expert at catching toys. Move it away, and once they're attached to it, tug, but tug at a level that doesn't make them let go. You're not trying to get it out of their mouth. The aim is not to try and win it from them. The aim is to keep them engaged, to keep them wanting to play. And I want you to let them win. I want you to let them grab that toy and run off with it. Let them be a winner. Here you go. Have one of those instead. What a good boy. Beautiful. So now you've got these dogs who are interested in keeping hold of that object. So we've got something we can use now to try and teach them the idea that, that letting go is a really good idea. So what we're going to do with that is we're going to have something really yummy available but not obvious. I want it in your pocket or behind your back, somewhere where it's out of play. Get them interested in tugging. Keep them low to the ground. We don't want them learning to jump up to pull on things. We want them learning to tug with you on the floor. And what I want you to do, keep moving, and then go still. So the toy in your hand goes still. Bring a piece of food right into the dog's face. Then you can start moving again. Okay, so we're not trying to take it off them. We just get them tugging, get them moving, make sure they're nicely attached. Then stop moving, bring the food into the mouth, and then start moving again. That's all I want you to do. Very clever. All right, so we're going to add a cue to that. So the dog knows that we're going to stop. So just before you stop moving, literally a split second before you stop moving, I want you to say drop. And then we do everything else exactly the same. Stop moving, food comes to the face. Okay, so we're going to do it like this. Where's your toy? Drop. All right. So you can either let go of the toy slightly, or you can keep hold of the toy. So most dogs, after you've said drop, they're going to find it easier to understand if you drop the toy. But don't worry, if you keep hold of it, the food still comes in exactly the same way. You go still after you've said drop. So some dogs are more motivated by food than they are by toys. So once you've done one drop, they're just looking for the next bit of food, and that's fair enough. Okay, because we're going to introduce the idea of swapping. We're going to introduce that in other ways as well. All right. So Dodo, he's a good boy. So tug play, brilliant way of getting your dog to learn to want to interact with you. Massive relationship builder. Dogs love tugging. Dogs love it. Swap them. So when you're swapping, you're not trying to get the toy off them. The aim is not to try and be cleverer than your dog. The aim is to get your dog to want you to say that word. Okay. So what we're going to do, we're going to get Dodo really excited about the word without the toy. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm just wandering about, merrily ignoring him. We're going to introduce the cue without anything in place. Getting him to ignore me is easier said than done now. Drop. Drop. So now we can reintroduce the toy, and I'm going to ignore the toy. I'm going to say drop. Move the toy a little bit, drop. Slowly build up, drop. 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 So slowly build up. If your puppy can't let go of the toy, go back to a situation where they're happy to move away from the toy. So it's not about browbeating them or forcing them or nagging them. It's about them learning that that word is a brilliant word. It doesn't mean that they're going to lose that toy. It doesn't mean that they're going to lose that interaction. It just means that there's going to be something yummy instead. Is everybody following that so far? Is it making sense so far? So people seem to have this, we have a bit of a restriction in our brain that we're supposed to win things from our dog or force our dog to listen to us or do as we say. And actually getting them on your side is a much more efficient way of teaching them. So teaching them that letting go of stuff is a really good thing. Once you've got them wanting to tug with you, you can use tug as a reward for behaviours. And now you've got food and play as potential reinforcers. So Wilma says, I'd rather have the food, don't really want to play with the toy anymore. That's fine. That's good. So you give him a little break and then wait until she's interested in playing. So what you do is you take the toy, you make the toy look interesting. If you keep forcing it on them and keep begging them to play with you, all that happens is that they start to think, you know, why? They get suspicious. Why? Why is it such a big deal? Why do you keep fapping it in my face? All right. So how can we use toys as reinforcers? It's exactly the same as food. It needs to be out of play, so out of reach, wherever that is for your dog. If for your dog out of reach is all the way up in your arm, that's where it is. Wait until a behaviour that you like or ask a behaviour that they know, and then you can give them a little bit of tug play. If you're using a toy as a reinforcer, you must play. Don't just show it to them. Don't just let them hold it for 5 seconds. You must play. Good boy. So my cue to let go of things is tar. That's just what we taught. So I don't use drop, I use tar. So just so you know. So now he wants this. It's a good reinforcer. I can say down. Get it. So I'm giving him a release cue to start the game. And get it. Tar. That wasn't tar, was it? Good boy. Very good. Very good. And we can slowly build up his ability to control his impulse to go after it. So this doesn't happen overnight. You start with a tiny bit of movement. Oh, very nice. You can either reward them for being still and ignoring it, or you can reward that stillness by telling them, get it. How are we doing? Is everybody following? So you slowly build it up. It doesn't happen overnight. And the aim is to try and get the dog, as I said, wanting to interact with you, wanting to play with you. So, arousal control. This is playing with tug is a really nice way of winding your puppy up so that they're excited and then helping them to calm down to start that game again. So every time they practice, oh, I need to calm down to get that person to let that toy go again, or to make that game start again, I need to calm down. So the dog is learning to calm themselves down. They're learning emotional self-control. Yeah? So, any questions about any of that? Are we all fairly happy? Can I get a thumbs up? Because I need a bit of reinforcement. Yeah? Any questions at all? I like it when people ask questions. It scares me when you're all just saying, yeah, it's fine. Did everybody have a hard night last night? Was everyone out on the drink? Everyone seems a bit meh. I went for a COVID test yesterday. Oh, hey. Anyway. Right then. How does the dog know when a game's over? Think about it from your dog's point of view. If you were having a really, really nice game and they wanted to continue that game, but it wasn't appropriate for whatever you were doing. So look at Dodo, he quite happily continued to play with me. So how does he know that I'm not available? Well, one of the cues that's telling him that I'm not available is me talking to the computer screen. Hello. She says, can you get off? Can you go away? Okay, so we have a cue, my cue for him that we're finished, that I don't need his interaction, is go away. Okay, and he's gone and laid down. So you can teach a finished cue by showing your dog, when I've said that I will not interact with you. And it does mean to begin with that you do have to kind of just ignore them, make it really obvious with your body language, with your face. After you've said that cue, you're not available until you give a re-engagement cue. So if you call them to you, or you say their name, or you start looking at them and interacting with them. So if I wanted him back again, I'd say, hi, come here. Can you come up? Good man. All right. Good boy. Get off. Go away. And I'm going to not talk to him, not interact with him. I know he's still asking, am I available? But I don't want to repeat that cue. If I keep repeating the cue, I'm continuing the conversation. So it's your body language and the way that you act after you've said it that tells him that you're not available. So finished cues, a lot of people just use the word finished, or all done, or that's it. Yeah, so but you make it the same cue so that you can teach them, when I've said that, I don't need your attention anymore. Okay, we're going to play a game. So what we want for this game is a bowl full of stuff that your hand will fit in easily, but your hand can cover easily if you need to. All right, let everybody get one of those. Oh dear, oh no. Right, and so what we're going to do with this is called the bowl game. It is on the Facebook group if you want to have a look. The aim of the game is that the dog learns that going towards the thing that they want and trying to get to the thing that they want doesn't work. It just doesn't work. Okay, so what does work though is when you hold yourself back. When you hold yourself back and you control that impulse to go after that stuff. So what we do, the first thing that's going to happen as soon as you bring out a bowl full of food, your dog is going to want to get into it. They're going to try behaviours to get into it. What I want you to do is hold that bowl in a place where the puppy can't make it work. All right? This hand, your reward hand, is going to stay away from the bowl. And I want you to choose a part of your body that it's going to return to after you've given a reward. So there's a really nice self-control behaviour. My hand, my reward hand, goes to the bowl to get a piece of food and gives a piece to the dog, returns to its resting place. My bowl comes a little bit lower. He's made a really nice choice. So my reward hand moves and rewards, goes back to its resting place, and the bowl comes a little bit lower. And I want you to do that stage by stage by stage until you get the bowl all the way to the floor. When it's at the floor, you're going to slowly take that hand away. But remember, you're rewarding loads for your puppy. You're going to be rewarding rapidly over and over. So you're slowly taking your hand away, going back to the bowl to get the reward. Then you're going to slowly start to take your body away. So do it in little stages. Don't just get up and walk away until you're able to stand up straight. And then you're going to start moving away from it, but always going back to the bowl to get a piece of food for the dog. Now, some puppies get this really quickly, some puppies get it really slowly. If you find that your pup keeps breaking and trying to get into the bowl, it means that your reward rate is too slow. You need to increase the amount of wins that they get. We're not talking to them. I don't want you giving them instruction. I want them to find this out for themselves. So we're not telling them to sit or stay or wait. We want them literally to find out. Moving towards the bowl doesn't work. Keeping myself away from the bowl, that works. So it either works or it doesn't work. We make it very, very easy for them to find out. Oh, thank you. Come on, bud. Come on. So if we look for calmness and stillness, they're really nice things because they're the opposite of arousal. They're the opposite of excitement. We look at the body, we can help the body to feel more calm. And the aim is for the rewards to keep coming when the puppy is making good choices. If they keep making the wrong choice, we're asking for too much. So if they keep moving towards the bowl, we don't want to be giving that reward. We just move the bowl a little bit further away. We're looking for every time they control themselves. It's a consequences game. If you move towards the bowl isn't available. If you hold yourself back from the bowl, the food is available. And it's a silent game because we don't want to be blurbling on because that mixes them up. Okay, now I want you to don't hold food in your hand. The food all stays in the bowl. The only time a piece of food comes out of the bowl is when the dog's already made the right choice. Remember that reward hand is going back to its resting place. So that movement of your hand becomes part of the reward. That movement of your hand away from its resting place becomes part of that reinforcement picture for the dog. That's one of the reasons it needs to be empty, otherwise they'll keep nagging at the hand. So we need to make sure that they're not focusing on the hand. Look at you go, Basil, well done. Very nice. Bruno's got it. The Beezers haven't quite. I did see some really nice ones. Just reinforce more frequently. If your puppy keeps getting it wrong, make the movements of the bowl closer, smaller movements. So we lower it from there to there instead of from there to there. We want them to win. We want them to be being reinforced more frequently than the punishment. The punishment is that the bowl moves away. It's heartbreaking for the dog when they try something and they fail. You don't need to add any other punishment. The failure is enough. Okay, so I think you've all got that. I'm looking and it looks pretty good to me. Any questions about that bit? Any waves or wiggles? Can you see why it's so important that they be able to control their own impulses? They're canines. They're motivated to go after things. They're opportunists by nature. Okay, so another game then that's going to teach them the idea that going after something doesn't work, but going away from it does. So what I want you to do is I want you to have a piece of food in your hand. If the dog moves towards it, we're not going to move the hand away. We're just going to close it. We're going to keep that hand really, really still. And the split second that the dog makes a choice to move away from that hand, is the dog's. But I want the delivery to look really different from when you're just holding it. So here's a piece of food. I'm going to scoop it towards him. I'm going to make sure that I move. So here's stillness. He makes a good choice. Scoop it into him. There's a beautiful choice. So you can have that one. All right, so your puppies, to begin with, when you put it in front of them, they're going to scrape your hand, they're going to bite at your hand, they're going to do all sorts of horrible things. I really want you to just be very patient. And the split second you see them make any choice that means moving away from the hand, scoop in and catch it. Be really looking for that first choice. What happens if? When, again, with this game, we're not telling them anything. We're not telling them to leave it or we're not using a verbal cue. We want it to be, they find out what works and what doesn't work. So nagging at the hand, getting overexcited by the hand, that doesn't work. But moving away from it, even half a step, as soon as they make that choice, as soon as they give up, trying everything else, then we're going to reinforce that behavior. When you think about it from the puppy's point of view, this is really hard because previously when we've had food in the hand, it's been for them and we've wanted them to move towards it. We've been using luring. So we're asking them to learn a completely different concept, that when food is in the hand, sometimes it's not available. Beautiful, so I'm seeing some good choices being made. What I want you to do now is we're going to take it to another level. Now I've got rewards in one hand that are behind my back, they're out of play, and a tease that the dog isn't going to get in the hand. We're going to show him the tease, close the hand if he tries to get at it, reward from the other hand. And now I can also wait, did you see, by waiting a little bit longer, once he's got the concept, I can also then teach him to look at me instead of looking at the thing that he wants. And that's a really, really big thing. And I love these games because you can see the cogs turning. You can see the dog's really starting to think, what am I doing? What do I need to do to make this work? Yeah, so instead of us getting into that human habit of nagging and trying to show the dog what we want, we need to leave them a little gap so they can figure out how to make it work. They're figuring out how to make that human delivery system function. Okay, so we're going to take it on a little step further. What we're going to do here is we're going to take a little pile of food, and in the other hand, a little pile of rewards. Okay, so need enough in the T's hand that you're going to be able to control it, that you're going to be able to put your hand over the top of it. Okay, so they can see. Just go there so they can see. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the food on the floor. Just move in this way a bit. He's going to try and get into it, but that hand isn't going to move. The second he looks away from it, I'm going to reward him with the other hand. Take your hand away from the food slightly, not too far. So if he were to try and get to it, I'm going to cover it again. If he chooses to hold himself away from it, I'm going to reward him. And eventually, it's the same as the ball game. Eventually, the aim is that I be able to move away from it and increase what I require from him, that he should be able to leave that item. Okay? But it's his choice. So your job is to make sure that you're not asking your puppy to do too much that's too difficult. You slowly grow it. You slowly grow those choices and make sure that they're being rewarded frequently enough to make it worth their while. Because if you're asking for too much and they're doing the percentages, that they're more likely to get the reinforcement if they just take it, then you're going to get yourself back into that nagging human state of mind where we feel like we've got to make the dog do as we say. And we don't need to make them do it. We can teach them that there are good choices that are always reinforced. Okay, so the question I always get asked is, when do you introduce the cue? The leave it cue. Okay, leave it should mean that thing you're looking at right now, you're not going to get it. So just leave it, okay? Don't get it mixed up with the wait cue. With the wait cue, I want it to be a time delay, but the dog is going to get that item. That item being food or a toy or the opportunity to chase a squirrel or the opportunity to go run with another dog or the opportunity to go and say hello to their best human friend. Wait is a time delay. But leave it must always mean that thing that you're looking at right now is not going to be available to you. So don't mix up your cues. So when do you actually add the cue? When you're willing to put a whole load of money on it, that if you put that item out or you drop that item, that your dog is going to be able to make the right choice. And I want you to really gamble on yourself. Have a go with your partner. Say, I'm going to introduce the leave it cue. I think I'm ready. I'm willing to bet 100 quid. And then your partner's going to be ever so pleased if you fail. So don't be introducing that cue too quickly. Okay, so once you have slowly introduced the cue, your dog making good choices, that's a leave it. You're listening, leave it. Then you can start, don't embarrass me, Dodo, that's a leave it. Then you can start testing it and having it happen in different situations and different scenarios, okay? But don't be introducing that cue and expect it to work in all sorts of different ways and different situations and scenarios until you've practiced them. until you've taught that leave it in lots of different ways. So can they leave it when it's on the coffee table? Can they leave it when it's on the sofa? Can they leave it when it's their favourite object or their favourite food? So you slowly change those different parameters until your dog's really, really good at it. And this, the item he wants, he doesn't get because it's a leave it, but I am going to reward him for having made good choices. Does everybody understand all of that bit? Is it all too conceptual for you? Right then. So we've done food in the hand and food on the floor. Now we're going to do a little game called Mousey Mousey. So this is about arousal and self-control, mixture of the two. Quite fun. I love it. Okay. So what I want you to do, take a little pile of food. So you would do the other game first, so your puppy's got an idea of the concept of not going after food when it's on the floor. Does anybody want a dodo? Don't work with children or animals. Take a little pile of food. When your puppy's holding themselves back and not trying to get in the food, I want you to take one piece of food to the side and play with it a little bit. And if your pup keeps themselves still, flick it so they can have that piece. When they come back, if they go towards that food, cover it. Wait until they've settled themselves. This is the mouse. Move your mouse around a little bit. It's a little bit of prey. And when your puppy's making good choices and holding themselves still, flick that piece. Looking, he's wondering, he wants me to flick over there. And can you see the benefit of that? Is that now he's holding himself even further away from that thing. He's intense. Look at the intensity. This is a hunting game. Okay, so that's called Mousey Mousey. Let's see whether or not you can play. So if they move towards it, the hand covers. If they hold themselves back, the hunting game starts. Don't flick it too far. So we don't want them losing the treat. Doesn't want to be going under sofas or anything. We want to make sure they get that reward, that little chase. Isn't it cute? I love it. And they really enjoy it. If you think about it, chasing and catching something, that's a very innate behavior for a dog. And what are we reinforcing? We're reinforcing being still and controlling yourself, controlling your emotions, controlling your urge to go after something. And we can add a little cue. We can add weight when they're looking at it, because this is a delay. They are going to be getting the thing, aren't they? We can add weight. And then when we're about to flick it, we can tell them, get it. So cute. Does everybody like that one? It's fun, isn't it? And you can do the same with the toy. So with Dodo, he loves his toy. So we've got a toy. I'm going to wait until he's showing me a little bit of stillness. I'm doing, uh-oh, that didn't work, did it? Little bit of stillness. Going to do Mousey Mousey. Get it, get it, get it. Good boy, Tara. To make me start playing again, needs to offer stillness and self-control.
Get it. Yeah, where you go?
And of course, if you're playing with a toy, remember, you must have a game. You don't just take it off them straight away. If you're not going to have a game, remember to swap it for a piece of food. And remember, when you've finished doing any exercise, can you go away? Give them their no attention cue. They're telling them you're done with them, you're finished with them. So don't leave them hanging. Okay, so has anybody got a toy that you think you can try that with instead? Beautiful. And swap for the toy, so we're never stealing it off them. We're always going to give them something instead. So think about the bowl game. If they move, the toy stops moving and it goes out of their reach. So we're looking for stillness being the thing that makes us start moving and start interacting and playing. Self-control. Okay, so if your puppy is about to do something you don't want them to do, you've seen them, they've spied something that they want, they're on their way to grab hold of your brand new shoes or whatever it is, wouldn't it be wonderful to have a way of stopping them before they get it wrong, before they get into trouble? Wouldn't that be just the best thing if you could just say, oi, or yeah? But again, we risk with that kind of cue, we risk it becoming something that we then feel that we've got to follow through in an angry way. So to stop ourselves from learning that, we can teach an interrupter cue in a nice way. So an interrupter cue could be something as simple as their name to call them away from something, or it could be or oi, or nah, you know. So I'm not quite sure what I use because I do tend to set my life up carefully so that they won't get things wrong. But I know what I use. When they're really messing up and I really want them to calm down, I say, right. Because they've got, you know, gritted teeth because I'm losing my rag and I need to say something and I say, right. And when I say right, all my dogs look up and go, what? Because they're expecting something nice, not expecting to get into trouble. So we're going to go, right. Okay, so how's about I throw out a reason for him to want to do something. And he's not going to go for it. Right. We have a slipper. Because I'm not falling for it. Okay, so once you've trained it, it starts to really mean something to the dog. Once you've trained your interrupter cue, the dog starts to expect something nice instead. But they also start to learn that whatever it is that they're about to do, if they don't listen to that cue, that interrupter cue, you are going to go in there and especially if it's dangerous, you are going to prevent them from continuing. But I really want you to pick your battles. If you're constantly taking things off your dog, it means that they're learning not to trust you. They're learning that you unfairly steal things from them. So I really want you instead to be thinking, does that matter? Can I do something else to get their attention away from that? If I suddenly get up and move away, is the dog going to follow me? Which will stop whatever it was they were about to do anyway. If I move away and make a foodie noise, are they going to follow me to find out what that food is? If I move away and pick up one of their favourite toys and start playing with it, without looking at the dog, without trying to nag them or fool them, I'm just going to start playing with that toy. Your dog's more likely to want to play with the thing that you've got because you're interacting with it. So, but teaching an interruption cue is really, really nice. Also using touch, the hand touch. So if your puppy's name is associated with the hand touch, then they're going to be more likely to move away. So if you've got a pup, for example, who's excited by people, you might find, if you've got a really good hand touch, you might find that saying their name and offering the hand touch might be enough to get them away from that situation without having to be horrible. So I could say Dodo, and I've already increased the distance between me and that person. So lots of different ways of going around it to get what you would like with, and preventing puppies from doing stuff you don't like without having to get angry or get nasty with them. But sometimes you do have to physically restrain them. Sometimes you do have to stop them. You do have to get involved physically. And that could damage your relationship a lot, especially if it ends up being painful for the puppy, especially if it scares them. So I'd quite like you to do some preventative work on your puppy, accepting that restraint means you can't have something. Okay, so this is called a conditioned calm restraint. All right. And it looks a bit cruel, I think, to begin with, especially for puppies because they tend to fight against it a little bit. But what I want you to do is I want you to have your puppy close to you, and I want you to hold their collar. And I want you to throw a piece of food just out of reach where they can see it and they're going to want to go for it. And when, struggle, please struggle. When they've finished struggling, the second that that's it, good boy. The second that they start pulling, let them go and let them get that thing. So that could be a piece of food or a toy. They're gonna get it. Yes. So I want your puppy to try a little bit. I want your restraint to be as effective as is required, but not aggressive. Okay? So I really want you to be careful that you're not digging fingers into the dog, that you're not strangling them, that you're holding them in a way that isn't too uncomfortable. If they haven't got a collar on, you can put your hands, come here, darling, go that way so I can show them. Put your hands on the front of their chest. So you throw a piece of food out and put your hands on the front of their chest. You could use your knees if you need to, so that they learn. When she holds me like this, there's no point struggling to get away. And when she lets me go and tells me I can get it, then I can go. And especially as a veterinary nurse, the amount of times that we see animals that really freak out about the idea of being physically restrained, being held. And I think this is a really nice way to teach a puppy. All you need to do is just go still, and then you will earn your release. Okay? Just keep hold if they get a little bit panicky. But what I want you to do is the second that you feel any give, I want you to reward that by letting them go. And I know it's a little bit hard. The visa says no, it's really hard. Try not to get more fighty, just make your hands effective, but not aggressive. So, sometimes, just like with small children, obviously they're going to want to do something that's really inappropriate or it's dangerous and we really don't want them to continue. We really need to get this idea into their head very, very quickly, that if my person has said no, they are going to follow through on it. All right? So we're just waiting for calmness. We're just waiting for them to stop trying to get away from us. And we're going to tell them that they can when they've stopped fighting. And I think Bees has completely forgotten what they wanted in the first place. Yeah, but if you've got a child or a special friend or somebody that your puppy gets overexcited by and wants to get to, then practice calm restraint before they access that person. And remember, the more gentle it is, obviously needing to be effective but gentle, the calmer they'll be by the time they'll reach that other person. We want them to learn that calm gets them what they want. Okay. So, physical restraint, teaching them not to hate physical restraint. One of my favourite ways of doing that is massage. But I want you to really consider the consent test. Ask the puppy, do they want to come into you? Offer your hands and see if they want to come into you. Then I want you to touch them for 5 seconds, no longer. Take your hands away and see what they do. So he's just nudged me and he moved his body in closer to me, so that tells me he wants me to continue. So I'm going to do another 5 seconds. I'm going to stop. And on this occasion he said, I'd rather get my toy and bring it over to you to play. Okay? So that's him making a choice. He's speaking to me. I'm giving him a little bit of control over his own body. Okay? We're going to put that away. And now, what does he want? He wants that toy. So we're going to do calm restraint and tell him, get it. Good boy. What you got? What you got? What you got? Wait. I can do a little bit of handling. And if he's calm and he lets that happen, get it. So he's getting the reward he would prefer. So consent testing for massage. Ask them, do they want more? It gives them an opportunity to tell you which bits they like being touched, how they like being touched. It gives them an opportunity to understand that they can speak to you about it. It also gives you a chance to practice. Thank you, darling. Practice your. Thank you. Good man. Practice your calm restraint to release if there's something else in the environment that they would prefer, that they're not really into that massage, but you can use that calm restraint then to teach them to like being touched, to teach them to like being massaged. So let's have a look at how that's going on. Let's see if you're all getting calmer and more touchy and more cuddly. So when I first got Twiggy, because she changed hands so often, she had 6 owners, 6 different places that she was living before I got her. And she was 22 weeks old when I got her. Can you imagine that puppy's experiences of life were that every time you got attached to somebody, they disappeared. So by the time I got her, she really didn't want to know me. She wasn't scared of me, but she didn't see any point in getting to know me. She didn't see any point. And she really hated her ears being touched because her ears are massive, but they were the size that they are now on a smaller puppy. So they were even bigger. And everybody wanted to touch her ears. And she didn't want to talk to people. She didn't want to interact with people, and everybody went after her ears. So one thing that I really focused on with Twiggy was giving her choice of whether or not I touched her ears. And now she will come over and beg me to do ear massages because she loves it so much. Please come and stick your fingers in my ears. You know, she wants it. So we'll see whether or not she'll come in and show you that. She might not be in the mood for it, so I'm going to ask her. Come here. Here's my gang. Where's my Twiggy puppy? we're all still in play mode because we haven't seen each other for nearly a whole hour. All right. That was a no, and that's fine. She's busy. I'll just kick everyone out now. Can you go out? Go on out. Dodo? Yes, I know. Go on out. Go out. It's Twiggy's turn. Thank you. Here's my Twiggy. Here's my invitation. There's my little touch to ask her what she wants. She says, do it again. She really likes her bum being touched. So more often than not, if I ask if I can touch her, she'll say, yeah, do the bum. Okay. And then if I ask, can I touch your ear? Can you see her head went down and she slid away from me? She says, no. Fine. She says no. If I ask her again, she says, okay, I'll put up with it. But I'm trying to do little movements to try and make you not do that. You see, I'm moving her head away slightly. Rather you didn't. Little stress yawn there. Shoot a little bit. Oh, I don't know. I'm going to ask her again. And she's doing little movements to say, not sure. Again, little head movements, so that's fine. She gets to choose. And when she realizes that actually I'm not going to do anything horrible, then we can go into what she actually really enjoys now. It's a full-on ear massage. Yeah, but she's allowed to stop at any point. And she says, do it again. Did you see that invitation? Do it again. Yeah. All right. So that's me for today. Have you got any questions or concerns, or do you think that's all too much and too difficult? Any wiggles or waves for me? Go on then, speak to me. Oh, sorry, I hit the button at the same time as you. You might hit your button again. Oh, that's it, well done.
So we've gotten a bit better with the walking from the house, right, by taking a toy, but now he pulls constantly. So should we be training to walk by our side now that we've just gotten to walk around the block?
So yeah, I think the thing is to be aware that it's still potentially that pulling is still that little bit of anxiety. Yeah.
Okay.
So what I would do with that, if it were my puppy, is I would have a little choices game. The puppy chooses to keep the lead loose to get you to move. If the lead goes tight, your feet stop working. So it's very black and white. The puppy moves onto the lead, you stop moving. If they move back towards you, you reinforce, and then you move with them. You go in the direction that they wanted to go.
Okay.
That makes sense? So you don't intend on going anywhere. When you're going for puppy walks, it's really important that you're not intent on getting anywhere.
Okay. And do we do that? Should we start that immediately or wait until he's a bit more confident?
So I think the thing is with puppies, if they're moving quickly through an environment, so they're pulling and they're moving quickly through an environment, they're not taking that information in from that environment. They're not really learning anything about it. They're just blinkers and move. Okay, so we need to slow them down. But the way that we slow them down is not by forcing them to slow down. We reward them for choosing to slow down. Yeah, and I would use a food scatter each time they come back to you, each time they're not pulling. See, I don't think Twiggy's the best one to demonstrate this because she doesn't believe in pulling. Do you? We'll see. So let's imagine there's something over there that she wants to get to. Each time she comes back here, I'm going to scatter a few bits of food that's going to make her think being here is okay. And while she's eating those bits of food while her head is down, she's also taking in more information about that space. And then when she's with me, when she's interacting with me, we're going to move together towards the thing that she wanted in the first place. Okay? So you might find with a tiny puppy, especially one who's a bit anxious about the environment, is that your walks are literally 4 feet distances. We move 4 feet and then we stop because the lead goes tight. And we wait for the puppy to look at us or interact with us in any way or make the lead go looser. Then we do a little scatter where we are. And then before they start pulling again, we move on that loose lead. We move forward. So the reinforcement for the dog is obviously the food being close to us, which is the game we were playing last week. But it's also going to be that movement forward reinforces the lead being loose. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Easier said than done. And for some breeds, the working breeds, the next sniff, the next experience is more important to them than anything you might hold. So the reward needs to be your feet will move when the lead is loose between you, when the dog's connected to you emotionally, rather than physically by the lead. Does that make sense?
Yeah. The other thing I wanted to ask was Oscar is really quite well behaved in terms of he'll sit when you ask him to in the house, but when we get visitors or we're outside and we come across another dog or another human, there's just no listening. He just has no control whatsoever. He's so excited.
So all those games about self-control that we've done today, what you do is you start practicing those outside.
Okay.
Until you've practiced right from scratch all of those self-control choices, indoors is different from out. You know, the dog does not know it until they've practiced it. They don't know it until they've practiced it in that new situation. So you start right from scratch on everything. So you might have a dog who walks perfectly on lead when they're in your kitchen and living room and dining room, but as soon as you walk out of the front door, they can't do it anymore. Yeah. You have a dog who's perfect when it's just you, but when it's a stranger that comes into your home, they've never practiced with a stranger. So what we say is the same as the bowl game. Access to that person or to that sniff or to that whatever it is that you want right now, you gain that by being calm. Yeah, so you need a tiny bit of calm to begin with. So if you've got someone who's coming in regularly and your puppy's excited by them, then you can practice with them. But explaining it in other ways, with toys or with food, practicing it with things that they might like, having somebody in your family being a pretend stranger, so dressing up and acting differently. So the pup might want to get to them, but they don't get to access that person by just going for it. They get to access that person by choosing to hold themselves back and be thoughtful and be still. Does that make sense? So it's all those exercises that we spoke about today. That here, look, she's coming in. She says, "Can you do my ears, please?" You're wagging your tail.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions? Are we all relatively happy with today? All right. Well, if you think of anything else, you've got the WhatsApp group, or you can ask questions on the Facebook group as well. So do get in touch with us. You'll obviously get a copy of this video so you can go over it again, and do have a look at the stuff on the Facebook group, because the link to Chirag Patel's drop game is on there. And we've done a little bit about the bowl game. So remember, helping your puppy to make good choices and explaining to them what the good choices are without trying to force them or cajole them. It works much, much better. Okay, thank you very much. We'll see you later. Bye.